Ivanka Trump testified this week in New York State Court in a civil case involving the Attorney General who's suing Donald Trump and his adult children and others for persistent fraud in their business dealings in New York State. Now, Don Jr. testified, Eric Trump testified. A lot of their testimony was, I don't recall. But they didn't try to walk away from the numbers and say things like, and try to justify them the way their father did when he testified. His testimony was just, by all accounts, a complete disaster. He didn't answer many questions. He rambled. He lost control of his emotions. He was incoherent. He attacked the court, and he verbally attacked the court, the judge, everybody. He just really was unhinged, frankly, is how people have described it. But there were a couple of times where he leaned into the numbers. He didn't try to walk away from them the way his sons did. He actually said, no, not only are these not only are these numbers, low, they could have been higher, the 33,000 square feet, the apartment that's objectively 11,000 square feet or a little bit less, that this is, it's 33,000. 'Cause you can count, these spaces that nobody would count, like the elevator shaft or the lobby or the roof or whatever he said. That was just ridiculous. But then there's Ivanka. And Ivanka testified, and everyone's reporting that she said, I do not recall that she didn't help the case, that she was very poised, that she was, the opposite of her father, that she's very smart. But I have a different opinion. I think she did help the Attorney General's case. I actually don't think that it was as neutral or as not, certainly I don't think she helped her father's case in any way. They've all walked away from that and just basically said it wasn't me, but other than the father. But she didn't, I think she actually helped the government. And it was kind of a stealthy way that she heard the defense case, but this is why. Now, let's just back up for a minute. There's 7 counts here, right? There's 7 charges. This is a civil case. It's a bench trial, and it's brought by the Attorney General because the Attorney General can bring civil cases on behalf of the people of the state of New York when there's persistent fraud in businesses. And that's what they did here. It's under Executive Law 6312. And they brought 7 counts of persistent fraud. And the first count of persistent fraud was already found by the judge to be liable, meaning on the papers, just all the allegations on the papers, taking the facts, all the undisputed facts, the judge found in a motion for summary judgment that the government proved that. And with respect to that count, the only thing left is what are the damages, right? How much and what are the other damages? Like how much are they going to have to pay? And what other remedies, like you can never do business in New York, all your licenses, like your LLCs are dissolved. You have to, you'll have a monitorship or receivership, or you have to sell your assets, whatever it is. That's partly what this trial is about. That's going to be decided by the judge. Now, I don't think Ivanka helped in that count at all, because what she testified about was how it's clear, very clear, that they benefited financially as a result of these false statements. And how do we know that? Because Ivanka testified that she was the one, she was proud of this, it appeared, that she was the one who was instrumental in negotiating the loan from Deutsche Bank for the Doral Golf Club. And that was a loan that she went to Deutsche Bank, to the regular section where normal people go. And they were not interested, but she then went to the wealthy people section of the bank. I forgot what they called it, the private wealth management or something like that, where this part of the bank deals with people of high net worth and makes loans. And she went to them and negotiated, think about that, right? She asked for a loan, negotiated the loan, and got a loan, and got really favorable terms of the loan. That's not someone who isn't involved, who's just a figurehead, right? She was absolutely instrumental in negotiating that loan. And that loan, all over that loan, was a statement of financial condition and Trump's net worth, because it was dependent on that in order to get the favorable terms. In fact, she didn't recall a few things until she was shown an email between her and the person at the bank, where it was discussed that in order for Trump to receive this loan, for all of them to receive this loan, it had to be personally guaranteed by Trump, and he had to keep a net worth of $3 billion. I think knowing that that's too much, she negotiated a lower amount and asked for $2 billion, and they compromised on $2.5 billion. Now, that's someone who is familiar with the numbers, who negotiated the numbers, and more importantly, knew that the bank was relying on these numbers that turned out to be false in order to make this loan. So she helped that piece of the case, because the judge is certainly going to take that into consideration when determining were these ill-gotten gains, and will it have to be disgorged, meaning forfeited to the government. So that's going to hurt them big time in the wallet. But the other way she hurt them was the final six charges, civil charges, are also under Executive Law 6312, but they have an extra element to them. And the extra element is you have to also prove a criminal statute, but by a preponderance lower evidence, the civil standard, not beyond a reasonable doubt, the criminal standard. So the same elements of a crime, but at a lower standard, plus the persistent fraud. Now, they've already done the persistent fraud out of count one, so that counts for the other charges. But they have to also prove the elements of these crimes at a lower standard, the preponderance of the evidence, and those other charges, it's basically falsifying business records, falsifying insurance fraud, falsifying business records, that kind of a thing. There's 6 other charges, and those require intentionality and materiality, meaning the conduct had to be intentional, and it had to be material, meaning these fictitious documents weren't just nothing, the way Trump is trying to say they weren't relied upon. It's more just they were relied upon, they were important. And this fraud is what allowed you to gain money, essentially. And what Ivanka did was she testified and she couldn't deny it because it was in emails, that the banks relied on these particular documents that have already been found to be fraud in order to give the loan. So I think on balance, even though she didn't recall a lot, I think on balance, she helped the government and she helped the Attorney General in this case. And I think that, she, along with all the documents and the other witnesses that were put in, established, that she was very much involved in securing favorable loans for the Trump organization that required guarantees about her father's net worth. So trying to distance herself from her father's financial statements, saying she didn't know what valuations were included, in some ways doesn't matter because the government's proving that through other means. But she's the one who proved that those documents were relied upon. So it might not be the big gotcha moment that you see on TV, but in a white collar case, this is about as good as you get in terms of the building blocks of evidence to prove the elements of the offenses. Now, don't forget that Ivanka Trump was originally a defendant in this case as well, but she got her case dismissed because she left the Trump organization when her father became president and never went back. So she was beyond the statute of limitations. So an appellate court dismissed as to her, I should say. So that's what you got. And so I think she actually made the case stronger and helped the Attorney General. I'm Karen Friedman Agnifilo from Legal AF. Join me and my co-hosts every Wednesday and Saturday for our longer podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.